everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Gridkeeper, a D&D podcast. This episode, I am joined with the one and only Cubos Games. Please, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Cubos. I'm a streamer on Twitch. I recently started DMing for Dungeons & Dragons. It only took me 29 years to get into the game, but I'm enjoying it now. And I'm a dog dad and an all-around streamer, memer, gamer, and yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
An all-around cool guy at that.
Thanks.
So, today we are discussing the Lost Mine of Phandelver, the starter set D&D module.
Yes.
Now, I have been DMing since 3.5, but only recently started getting into the tooth and nail about it. And I must say that one of the things I do enjoy about this module is how helpful it is for starting out DMs and how helpful it is for players just starting out. Mm-hmm. That being said, this is 100% spoilers for anyone who is planning on running it and anyone who is currently running it. That is a personal call out to my players who I know tune into my streams. So be prepared for spoilers. That being said, of course, I haven't managed to make it through the entire campaign with my group, but from what I hear, you just finished running with your group. Is that correct, Cubos?
Yeah, we just spent 12 hours yesterday finishing it.
Oh, hot damn.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about it. But yeah. Cubos, ladies and gentlemen.
We need a clap track in the background.
You know, if when I can afford a stream deck and I'm not in the massive amount of debt I am in, I am totally buying one.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so Lost Mine of Phandelver. I have the book right in front of me just because, it's quick reference and nice to go over things and follow along, but that's just the way I do things.
Yeah, I actually brought mine up from downstairs. I have all my notes in mine too, so.
Oh, awesome. So, let's start with the background. About the whole more than 500 years ago, clans of dwarves and gnomes made an agreement known as the Phandelver's Pact, by which they would share a rich mine and a wondrous cavern known as Wave Echo Cave. Now, I'm not gonna lie. Just reading that first little bit, I was already hooked. I was like, I'm the one who's supposed to know everything that happens before everything does happen, and that immediately was like, nope, I'm running this with people.
I actually picked up this starter set over a year ago, and had no idea what I was getting into. I just thought, oh, okay, cool. It's a D&D starter set. It has the dice, the book, I think it had some. Oh no, I didn't. Oh no, I don't even think it had a grid. I had to pick up a grid afterwards. But I was just I opened up the book when I bought the thing a year ago, and I'm like, oh, that's dope. The Forgotten Realms, the adventure hook that's in the first 2 pages.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, oh, but I don't have anybody to play with. And so it's been a year of me poking at my friends, being like, you guys want to try? You guys want to try? You guys want to try? And now they're hooked. We've in the last, I think it's taken us 8 weeks to get through this book because we play once a week for about 4 or 5 hours. And we just we pick away at it, and now we've got the Ghosts of Saltmarsh, the 7 campaign pieces that are all amalgamated in one book ready to go, and the Tyranny of Dragons, the 2 books, we've got those set up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and then they all just bought today, they all went online and bought their own miniature characters.
Oh nice.
Yeah, I've been using some painted Warhammer ones that just kind of fit their characters for the time being, but now they actually went on the D&D website and bought all their characters.
Yeah, no, I've been collecting miniatures since, like I said, 3.5. So when I found out that the local card shop here was selling pre-painted plastics, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go buy blind boxes. And then after buying blind boxes and realizing how much I pull monsters, is it'd be nice to pull some PCs. And then I started pulling PCs. And it was like, God damn. And then there's so much, and I'm not gonna lie, legitimately as a DM, the best gift you could get anyone who has already played D&D or is currently DMing D&D, the best gift you can get them is a box of miniatures.
Yeah.
Because even if you get doubles, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, legit, I pulled 4 trappers from the new set of miniatures that just came out, and trappers are just like 10 by 10 floor bits that are clearly not floor. But like, I pulled 4 of those things. I can now throw that into a room as like a 20 by 20 mimic if I wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
But not saying I would do that, but it's totally something I would do.
That's fair.
But yeah, definitely miniatures are amazing.
Yeah, I think they make the game better for sure.
Just having that visual aesthetic and it does help people who don't have a very strong imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know one of my players doesn't have a very strong imagination and is trying their darndest to visualize everything that I'm describing to them.
Right.
And the miniatures definitely do have an impact and help with that visualization.
Yeah, I agree.
So the adventure hook. I used the adventure hook. I did the whole meet me in Phandelver thing. Mm-hmm. Now, the way I did it was I made one of the player characters, their backstory had Gundren as a friend from their childhood or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And it was like, hey, I could use your help in bringing something to Phandelver. And I was like, yeah, sweet, yeah, I'll meet you there. And then it was Gundren left a few hours ahead of them. Then they left, and what I didn't do was I didn't read far enough ahead, which is where I learned my first lesson as a DM. Read far ahead.
Yeah, read the whole chapter.
Well, I read the whole chapter, and I read the next 2, and I was like, okay, I don't see Gundren mentioned here at all. But, like, after reading further, I was like, okay, clearly Gundren goes way off elsewhere. And what I didn't realize was the horses that you encounter that are dead in the road, those were Gundren and Sildar's. I didn't read it that way. So I had them catch up with Gundren and Sildar on their way to Phandelver, and then I was like, okay, well, this just ruins an entire hook here. So I was like, how do I fix this? And that's one of the other lessons that it taught me was you have to be quick on your feet, and even if you mess up, there's a way that you can alter it to make it work.
Yeah, without ever having to really backtrack on yourself.
Exactly. So what I did was I threw more goblins at my party than I should have, and
nearly
it was a fight that they were clearly able to win with how it was written in the book, but I had to throw more into it just to make it so then I could get rid of Gundren and Sildar. To where I further messed up some shit, but we will cross that in part 3.
I use the adventure hook the way that it says where they hired the party, because I started with 3 people 3 adventurers as the party, and I knew that they were going to be the core group the whole time, and so they were hired under contract. And then as they adventured together, they progressively started to trust each other more, and they were giving each other things as opposed to contractually obligated to do things. And by the end of it, they had forgotten that they were contracted. And I'll go over it later as well, but their employer, Gundren, the guy that sets this all up, dies anyway. So their contract was kind of null and void in the end. But it was good because they learned to be a party of friends as opposed to contractually obligated adventurers.
I like that. But if my reading was correct, there's a chance that Gundren will survive?
Yeah, there's a chance that he lives or dies.
Ooh. Okay,
and this is where spoiler territory comes in. But yeah, he...
big ol' spoiler alert. I should have another button for that.
Yeah, spoiler alert right here. There's a lot of railroading, I find, in this book. You are not given a lot of choice throughout probably I would say the first 80%, and then the final 3 missions or the final 20% of this book is like, here's your choices and they have consequences. And I liked that because it was very much like, learn how to be a DM, and then here you go, you're off on your own. Oh, okay, the book's not even over yet.
Yeah, no, I found the first little bit was definitely a little railroady, but after the initial little bit of railroady that I had, I found it very sandbox once they got to Phandelver. Where it was like, we could go and continue the adventure, or we could sit down in town, have a few pints, and then the Red Brands just came in and started being dicks, and it was like, well, now I want to deal with this problem.
Right. Yeah. I think there was.
But that's again crossing into part
Yeah.
two.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
But well, we could dip into part two a little bit, I believe. Go ahead with what you were gonna say there.
Oh, just yeah. It was very sandboxy in terms of choices. Like you could choose to stay in town and do things. You could take on one of the 10 or 12 missions that or adventures that they give you. Go and talk to everybody around town, etc. I think that was well done, but there's no like outside influences to give you any choice. It's like you go and talk to those people and you pick up their adventure and then you go and do it. And like my party, I think they talked to 5 or 6 different people, amassed all the quests at once, and then decided which ones to do. And it was sort of based on how many people they had for that sessions, because the 3 core people were always there, but then we'd always have 1 or 2 extra people pop in. And
oh yeah,
the way we had them enter the party was that they would be at the miners' exchange in town looking for work, and we would contract them or like subcontract them as mercenaries to help the party. So they were never fully trusted, but they were always given a cut of the gold. And
okay.
So that's how we had people pop in and out for for this whole book, basically. So.
Oh yeah, I had one member join the party from the Tribord Trail. I'm looking right at the name of it. Yeah, I had one person join from the Tribord Trail. They were coming down from Coneyberry, we'll say, and just happened to come across the party as they were dealing with the horse ambush, where Sildar and Gundren's horses died. So he joined and helped out dealing with some of the goblins, and they went and dealt with Cragmaw Hideout. Which I must say that I think my party could not have had much more go wrong. It's just I was rolling really, really well. Like, they tried to stealth into it, and of course I rolled the high end rolls, beating them, and I was like, I wasn't trying to.
Yeah,
and of course I fudged a few of their rolls, so then they didn't die in the first couple sessions, but of course that's what we do. And then after getting into Cragmaw Hideout, they essentially went on, you guys are causing us grief. We want to make sure you don't come back. So they went into a little bit of murder hobo rage. It was like, you guys are goblins. You guys are treating us bad. You're being bad. We're gonna make sure you don't be bad anymore by killing you.
Right.
And that was one of the things I liked about the party and basically how they started out going through this. That bridge in the main part was probably the most difficult thing for them to come across or to deal with in the Cragmaw Hideout.
Yeah, because there's 2 bridges there, right?
Nope, just one.
Oh, in the Cragmaw Hideout.
Still part 1.
Oh yes, okay, yeah.
You know, they had the bridge collapse, and then the dwarf bard we have in the party, thought it would be a good idea that as they were dealing with the goblins in Area 7, the human who can't see shit, because it's pitch black to him, but, like, everyone else has dark vision.
And he doesn't.
Exactly. So the human wizard, puts his hand on the wall and starts walking along the wall, finding his way through. And the bard led him down a hall and then, in an attempt to startle him, pushed him over the ledge back into the area below. So the entire encounter with Clarg was literally just the warlock throwing eldritch blasts at him, while the half-orc barbarian was just taking the hits.
Nice.
It was by far a very interesting encounter. It definitely did not play out the way I thought it was going to, which is where, this module taught me you have to think quick on your feet.
Yeah. Yeah, I found like the Kregma hideout was probably not the easiest, but the most I would say like generic dungeon for my party. Like they have all played D&D style games, but like digitally, so things like Neverwinter Nights, things like Baldur's Gate, like all these games that are based in the same Forgotten Realms. But it's like when you're playing those things, you can do things like check for traps and burn bridges and do all these things that are in the game, but you're always prompted to do those things. So when we came to this dungeon, they were asking me like, "Can we do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, hell yeah, let's try that. Let's just see what happens." One guy was like, "Can I sneak under the bridge?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know, it's like it says it's 10 feet over the thing. Yeah, definitely. It's got a little ledge right there. Let's try that." He's like, "Oh," and then they realize that they can hear the goblins shuffling above them. And they're like, "Oh, dope! Like we just figured that out." It's like that was their first introduction to dungeoneering, really, and they did it really really well. I don't think we had a dungeon that went as well as Craigma Hideout. Actually, everything after that was hilarity.
Yeah, no. Craigma Hideout brings me to another part. Another thing that I learned was, as a DM, when you have people joining and it's like you're not exactly in a position where you're in Phandalin, for example, where you had people meeting up through the Miners Exchange. I was presented with another person joining the group, but we were still dealing with Cragmaw Hideout. So after Clark was dealt with, and the human wizard and the dwarf got caught up with the cleric and the barbarian. Excuse me. Oh, I'm a little gassy, sorry. Sildar is in part 6, according to the notes here. And then the only thing is he's been stripped down of all of his stuff. Now, remember how I messed up the plot hook?
Mm-hmm.
And how I had to have the goblins overrun them and then kidnap Sildar and Gundren?
Yes.
So, they didn't exactly have time to... Well, they had time to get Gundren elsewhere, but they stripped down Sildar but didn't remove all of his stuff, like, from the area. Reading further ahead, because, again, I didn't read far enough. I only read up to the end of part 2.
Mm-hmm.
It was like... Well, now that I'm reading part 3, right, where I've got the castle, of course. Yeah. Like it says that Sildar's stuff is supposed to be in the castle. I didn't have time to... I didn't read that far ahead, so I thought, okay, well, where's Sildar's stuff? It must be somewhere, but I wasn't going to read that far ahead to find it. So I just makeshift put it elsewhere in the 6th area there.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Where it was also chained up with the new player, the halfling rogue. Right. So, like I said, it made me have to improvise how could I get another person into this group, but also how do I make sure the party doesn't kill this person, and at the same time they don't just... He doesn't just bend over and immediately, like, beg them for whatever.
Yeah.
They roleplayed it really well, and I'm very proud of my group for that. I actually reward extra experience when I see an excellent demonstration of role playing. Okay. So despite the half-orc barbarian being constant, like a constant of, I don't know you, I don't trust you, but we can work towards it, sort of thing. Like, I gave her experience points for role playing the encounter with the character, but also immediately not jumping on try to kill this guy.
Yeah, that's sweet. I never gave it extra experience to any of my adventurers.
I just threw it into the pool, and it was up to the extra. It was up to the people who did the role playing whether they wanted to split it with the group or
Oh,
not. But
okay.
yeah,
That's a good way of doing it. I didn't have anybody actually like role play their characters very much, except for one guy, our ranger. He was always role playing his character, but never during all of like the town stuff or while he's just talking with the party. It's always when he's talking to like NPC characters, and he would role play really well. So that was, I would always make sure that he got some kind of like magical item or something instead. Yeah.
nice.
I found.
But yeah, did you?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, after you.
I found that like I gave out a lot of extra items in this campaign, um, because I felt like my characters or my adventurers were underpowered in certain situations, even with four of them. And like that's more later in the book, but it's just one of those like, I mean, you were awarding experience, and I ended up awarding more items because I was just like, well, this doesn't feel like you're ready for this.
Well, I would reward them experience, and in combination, give them like little bits and pieces to help them get along their
Mm-hmm.
way. Like, if we wanted to move into part two now, where it is more into Phandelver, um, like at first I started out having them. They met Toblin, and Toblin treated them really well because they stood up for him, and after the Red Brands were causing him some grief, like I had the Red Brands seem like loan sharks, like high end
Mm-hmm.
mob, if you will. Whereas the book says more to have them be more like bullies, more like the childhood school bully sort of
Yeah.
thing, right?
No, I had them do the same thing. They were basically like enforcers. They were there. They were the type of people who were like, "Oh, we provide you protection for the right amount of money," right?
The saviors from The Walking Dead. I'm not sure if you watched The
Yeah,
Walking
yeah,
Dead,
same
but
thing. Totally.
like they saw that Toblin was being harassed a little bit, and Toblin has his kid and his wife, and they were being harassed a little bit. It was like, this is no,
Yeah.
bye bye. And then of course this is where everything went off the beaten path. Like, you mentioned it felt a little like railroading, whereas I said it goes a little more sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
They, after the Red Brands became enough of a problem, they focused the Red Brands, and they started a war with them.
Oh,
They had Red Brands traveling in packs of four. They were trying to find ways to. They were really clever in trying to find ways to get to the sleeping giant to try and take them out.
right.
And they got really clever with it. And Sildar was with them in town, of course, but like I said, I'd given him all of his shit.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point, they got spotted as they were trying to get to the Lion's Shield coaster, and the Red Brands are like, "We know you. We're gonna deal with you." And because the party was so weak, they didn't bring any of the items back from the cave to the Lion's Shield coaster at this point. So they had reduced stock because the goblins were taking their
Right.
stuff. So as they were working on learning about that, Red Brands are on high alert looking for them, and of course a few of them are wounded and dealing with some stuff. And Sildar, being the badass that he is like, I don't know what you done. I could probably guess what it was. And then he pulled a total Gandalf and said, "Run, you fools!" So they turned tail and ran, and Sildar soloed, I think it was 8 or 9 Red Brands before he got knocked unconscious.
Jeez.
To where they brought him to the Transcendar Manor, the hideout, and they put him into the cell opposite of where the Dendrar, or not the Dendrar family, the Dendrar family, the cell opposite of them. But again, they were still in a situation where they couldn't move all of his stuff. So I was like, well, this could have gone to Cragmaw Castle now, but, me not reading ahead far enough. But yeah, that was their first experience in Phandalin. Was the Red Brands made their appearance known, and they didn't talk to very many of the villagers, but they did get some information, and they were picked on themselves. And at the end of it all, it was like, this is bullshit. You guys are bullshit. We hate you. We want you gone. And then they stormed the. They did a very clever attack on the Red Brand hideout.
I had the party like when they dealt with the Red Brands in the bar or the tap house. They so they pissed off the Red Brands, and then it says in there to like up the stakes. If they piss off the Red Brands and then they take too long, the Red Brands might do something to like hinder the party. And I had it up the stakes on them that if for every day that they were gone, like they wanted to do all the side quests. So if they left town for any length of time, then the Red Brands would start killing people in town because of them. So then they felt very guilty, and they stopped doing the side quests to deal with the Red Brands because they were like, "Oh, we can't be part of this."
Getting to the manor, the hideout.
Mm-hmm.
Did they go to the tap house and then go to the hideout, or did they like how did you get them to the hideout?
They did the tap house first, and then I think they had. Oh, they had. We had a guy enter the party for one session. He was a friend of one of the people in our regular group, and he was from out of town. And he came in, picked up. He was the only person who used one of the pre-made characters. Everybody else had created their own. And
Oh yeah,
yeah. So he used a pre-made character, the Rogue, and the Rogue was actually associated with the Red Brands in the past, and had a map of their hideout, knew where they were and everything. So it ended up working out really well because he came in and was like, "Oh, hey, I have this. Like, I was part of them. I got kicked out because I didn't like what was happening, and so they basically were just like, leave." And he fled, and then had all of the information pertinent to being able to get in there and deal with all of the other Red Brands. So that was how they actually got to the hideout, or into the hideout, and dealt with them.
so I like that. I now that you say it like that, I regret not doing it that way because it would have made my life a lot easier. Because what they did was they started that war with the Red Brands, mm-hmm. and they were working on ways to get to the Sleeping Giant tap house. What happened was because they were spotted and Sildar was there to cover their ass, I was like, you guys are fucking idiots. Go, leave, I'll deal with this, but you guys gotta go.
Right.
So they ran out of town, and I made a couple of errors. One, I forgot that one of my players had a level of exhaustion.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that they were double moving to get out of town and get as far away as possible, make life easier.
Right.
And then I also misread the hexes of the overworld map because they left Phandalin and went southeast or southwest to camp out. Camp out and let things die down a little
mm-hmm.
bit. And then they started working their way back to Phandalin, and they kept quiet. They were thinking, we'll go underneath the cover of night, and we'll infiltrate the Sleeping Giant tap house and burn the fucker to the ground. Yeah. So once nightfall came, after they had some rest and they gotten rid of, and of course the party member who was exhausted got rid of their exhaustion, they started making their way back to town. And once they got into town, the dwarf bard was used a disguise kit to make himself look like a woman. Went in between the houses and such, going around working his way through town, and the rogue just stood, like, walked across the bottom of the map more or less, and then when he got to in line with if you're looking at the map on page 17, when he got in line with the 500 feet mark, he went up towards the north, and then he was gonna cycle through, but he found a cavern which would lead into the manor, the hideout. So the dwarf bard, who's disguised as a woman, works his way into, or gets picked up by some red brands and brought to the sleeping giant tap house, and he gets a message from Glassstaff saying, or one of the red brands says, "Save this one for me." And so I'm guessing I made it like he messaged one of the leading people and said, "Bring her to me. I'll have my time with her," that sort of thing. And that was how the dwarf got pulled or drifted towards the manor.
Oh, okay.
Rule number 1 is you never split the party. They split the party.
Oh, yes, of course.
They split it twice. So while that's going down, Halfling Rogue finds his way into this cavern and deals with some of the effects of the Nothic that's hiding out in the manor. Yep. And it's like, I don't like this. I'm gone. Peace out. And then daylight's starting to show. And then the rest of the party starts making their way into town. Dwarfs in the manor.
Oh,
Halfling is leaving the manor.
Split up.
Oh, yeah.
Yikes.
Halfling is leaving the manor while they're making their way in town. They end up outside of the sleeping giant tab house, and I threw a bunch of red brands at them. I was trying to get them to run. And they did eventually run to the manor. They came across the halfling, and they pulled him in. Got to the manor. While they were making their way from the tap house to the manor, the dwarf was already there.
Okay.
In through the main entrance on page 21. In through there, ended up falling into the pit trap and knocked themselves unconscious.
Perfect.
It was a very well done. Like, I'm not happy that they split the party. Don't get me wrong. I'm all against splitting the party. However, I will say that the consequences for doing that action were just, and it was like, I'm not gonna lie, this could have panned out way better.
Kind of glad it didn't.
Exactly.
I get that.
And then, yeah, once they got into the manor, that's where more shit hit the fan. But I'm more interested in, at this point in time, hearing about what difficulties you encountered in the hideout.
The hideout wasn't actually super difficult for them. I don't think so. They dealt with... Oh, actually, when they went in, they had the bugbears on the left-hand side. They decided, and basically, it was their motto, always go left, right? That was their thing. Always go left when you enter somewhere. So, okay, they go left, and they go... they have a druid in their party who can turn into... I mean, he can shapeshift twice a day.
Yeah.
And so they figured it out that if they changed him into a mouse, that the mouse could go and scout for some information, come back and tell them. But I said, okay, well, if you're a mouse, or a rat, fairly common in dungeons, etc. Nobody's gonna suspect necessarily, but your brain power is only so much, right? Like, you have a tiny brain. So if you're gonna do that, then you only have this amount of knowledge to be able to remember things. So I allowed them like one room of scouting with the mouse. That was it. If he was a cat, then he could do 2 rooms. And I would have to give him the details, and then he could give it back to his party. And And so this is what he did, and he's like, "Oh, I found these whatever." He said, "5 big hairy guys." This is what he tells his party. And I'm like, "Uh-oh, like they're not going to believe that it's bugbears." And of course they didn't. So they all of a sudden storm into this room, and they're in the middle of 5 bugbears, and they almost all die. Like 4 of the 5 of them are unconscious by the end of it. And this is the first room out of like what 12 or 16. It's just the whole party's like, oh, okay, what do we do now? So they heal up as best they can, deal with their gear and stuff, and redistributing potions. And the one says, okay, well, we should take a short rest. Okay, so they barricade the doors. They take their short rest. I rolled a d20 for like wandering monsters, like they just fought 5 bugbears. I'm sure somebody heard something. So nothing encountered them. They got their short rest. Then they dealt with most of the rest of the areas. They ran into the Nothic. They made a deal with it that they would continuously give it the dead bodies of all of the enemies that they fight along the way. And so they would, after each fight, they would drag all the bodies over to the cavern, give them to the Nothic, like leave them there for the Nothic, and then continue on. And that was how they went the whole time. They made the deal with the Nothic, and then at the very end, somebody was like, oh, I'm going to get down in the cavern and scout around. Well, the Nothic wasn't very happy about that because of his chest. And so the one guy's like, oh, cool, there's a chest down here. And so they broke the deal with the Nothic for the chest, and just tried to take the chest basically, and almost.
All I can
What's that?
all I can picture as you mentioned the Nothic of, oh, look, a chest. All I can hear is Gollum's voice going, my precious, and then
Man.
trying to storm him out.
And they just they almost died to the Nothic because I had made it a little more powerful just because they double crossed it, and so they were unable to find it at one point because it was like stealthed into the shadows, and they're like, oh no, where is it? They couldn't find it. It jumps out, knocks one of the party members unconscious. It was just a hilarity of bad timings for all of them. They double crossed almost everything that they made a deal with too. By the end of it, I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
So the Nothic would put us up to Area 8. Cool. So we'll touch back because there's still a few rooms left. Mm-hmm. So before the dwarf fell unconscious in the pit trap in Area 3,
mm-hmm.
He went into Area 4. He was just looking around trying to scout ahead. And you saw the skeletons just hanging around. They looked dead.
Yeah.
He stepped into the 5-foot square in front of the door towards Area 6. And I made it like this ominous voice just says in his head, password.
Yep.
To where he started spouting like gibberish and shit, and the skeletons rose up.
Okay.
And he was like, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. And then that's where he ran out and fell in the pit trap and knocked himself unconscious.
Oh, yeah.
Because the skeletons got a few good hits on it.
Okay.
The party, when they arrived, they dealt with the red brands in Area 2, or went into Area 3, woke up the dwarf, saved his ass, went into Area 2, dealt with the red brands there.
Yeah.
And they went back to Area 4 and started exploring a little bit and didn't know the password, couldn't find the password or anything like that. But as they were walking back through Area 3, they heard a loud thud against the northern wall.
Okay.
On the side of the pit trap. Basically, one of the prisoners had been abused.
Yeah.
That's what I had going on in my head to make that happen. They found the secret door, and they also found the satchel in the cistern. I think that's what it's called. The cistern in the small reservoir in Area 1. They cleared out the items of the satchel, found the secret door. It was like, oh, cool. We'll come back to this. They started looking through Area 4 again, And they got smart. What they did was they took the dead skeleton bodies and put them into the pit.
Oh, okay.
And then when it chimed password and they didn't have the password, and what had happened was the skeletons had materialized from the floor to start up combat.
Nice.
I was like, Jesus Christ, this is bullshit. And they took on the skeletons this time because they were ready for them. Found the secret door, went through Area 8. And the two bridges in Area 8 with the Nothic. All of the party members were holding on to items that made them weigh more than 50 some odd pounds.
Okay.
Enough to break these things if they decided to pile on them. So they let one person go at a time, and because they were weighing more than 50, I rolled a d20, like a constitution save for the bridge. I think it was, like, they came across the Nothic, they took some of the Red Brand armor and put it on and basically made a few of them look like Red Brands.
Okay.
So the Nothic was like, "Oh no, me masters, I disrespected you, I'm sorry, And, basically the Nothic thought he was gonna die. Because he had used his gazing ability thing, which I'm not looking at the book right now to be able to tell you what it is, but he used his gazing ability and he took out the two people wearing the Red Brand armor.
Oh no.
It was like, oh fuck, I'm dead now. And they start making their way across to go into Area 9, Area 10. And both bridges broke. The Warlock fell into the pit. Got into a fight with the Nothic. Nothic lost. He goes in, grabs the chest, grabs the contents of the chest. It's like, here you go. To where the half-orc barbarian now has the Talon sword.
Okay.
So the barbarian went through using the sword for the rest of up to where we are now. But here's where things get interesting. The rogue decided, I'm going to go up ahead. You guys are taking your time. I'm not dealing with you guys. Peace out. Goes down into Area 9, opens the door a little bit, sees 3 bugbears in there. The goblin makes eye contact with him and faints.
Oh no.
And he's like, fuck. And he starts making his way quietly back. It's like, there's things in the room down there. And then they put together what may have been the most elaborate trap I've ever seen them do so far. They had Mage Hand holding a torch. They used Prestidigitation to light the torch. The wizard had 4 or 5 flasks of oil on him.
Okay.
So they dumped oil down the stairs.
Oh no.
With the oil on the stairs, it's now a slippery surface. It's difficult terrain. Yeah. It's also a slick surface. To make it extra slicky, they threw ball bearings into the oil.
Oh my goodness.
With Mage Hand, they're holding a torch up, so then when the torch falls, it sets the trap up and everything goes off. Now the halfling is shorter than the half-orc barbarian, so he just fired pot shots between the legs of the half-orc.
Okay.
The half-orc readied a few javelins and started throwing those at anything that came up the stairs. So they take a few rounds to set this up. The bugbears take some time to wake up the goblin and send the goblin in. Or send the goblin out. The goblin goes out, starts walking up the stairs, having trouble, and they trigger the trap. A torch falls from the sky, setting the oil on fire. The goblin can't maintain his footing, so he falls into the oil. He's now covered in oil. Not only that, he's also burning and on fire and dead.
And dead.
And then, of course, hearing all the commotion of the screaming goblin, the bugbears come out, and then people start throwing pot shots, and the bugbears are trying to find their way through. And, like, the trap worked and did a number, but, like, you know, I use this to teach them a lesson. Like, you want to try and keep a physical body around, because if you just leave them in piles of ash, all their valuables get burned as well. So they didn't collect the eye patch. They didn't collect any of the weapons that the bugbears had. They weren't able to collect much. They just, it was like, okay, cool. Well, well, everything's dead. But in the process of dealing with that commotion there, it gave the Red Brands in Area 10 just enough cover to go, we're gonna take out these things that are causing us grief. So they started making their way to flank Area 8.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't pan out very well because one of the players rolled an insight or a perception check and it was like, we've got things coming from behind, and that was the wizard who started. He pushed himself up against a wall, and his go-to move is grab the nuts and shocking grasp. So I let him ready the action because there was more than enough people there to take actions and such like that. So I was like, yeah, I'll let you get away with it this time.
What a move.
Well, here's the thing. The wizard, he works a shift that doesn't work very well for the sessions, but one of the other players can roleplay his character for him perfectly.
Okay.
So I've just been having him do the rolls for it. And whenever the player arrives, he can't roll to hit with shocking grasp to save his life. Not at all. He's lucky to roll above a 10.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever someone else is playing his character, they'll roll 10s, they'll roll 20s, they'll roll a bunch of stuff. Yeah. The only time the wizard is able to roll well is whenever someone else plays him. And other than that, it's his divination rolls.
Right. Well, we have a player like that, or I have a player like that too. He's like he's a bugbear monk. And whenever he's doing normal attacks, he can't roll for anything. But as soon as he drinks a cask of cider, like a huge cask of cider that he carries around, he, in one of the weeks of downtime, he trained in drunken boxing, and we rolled a d20, and he got drunken boxing. So when he drunken boxes, he gets the ability to hit multiple enemies as long as they're all within 10 feet of each other. So he often whirlwinds with his quarterstaff, and then he has the offhand attack or his bonus attack. So he whirlwinds multiple enemies at once and then follows it up with like a high jump kick or something stupid. And it works out almost every time. But normal attacks he can't do to save his life. It's pretty awesome.
The wizard, his character is constantly drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, has a flask at his hip, and it's always filled with ale of some sort, and he's just constantly going at it. If he's sober, there's something wrong. That's basically how this character plays. Yeah. Get into Area 10, and of course you see that it's got a description of a tap, and he just goes, "I'm drinking the whole thing," and he roll a Constitution save, and it's like, yep, I can still function. So now, after going over that's Area 9, 10, 8 there. Area 11 and Area 12, that would be Glassstaff's quarters area. Mm-hmm. His workshop and his quarters. How did your group deal with that encounter?
What did they do for Glassstaff? They ended up finding the secret room, or the secret entrance, to the back of Glassstaff's place.
Oh.
And in doing so, they...
Hold up 1 second. Jingle Bell, thank you for the follow.
Nice, Jingle.
Hot dang.
Oh, hell yeah.
I don't have the camera going, so I don't have any fancy hand things I could do, but take note, Jingle, that I am doing jazz hands for you, and thanks.
So they found the secret entrance to the back, and this bugbear monk that I was talking about, we ended up giving him the title of Mage Killer, because every time we met a mage, he would insta kill it. he would just like he would use his sneak attack and then flurry of blows with all his key points.
I see some foreshadowing for part
Oh
3.
yes,
Wink, wink, nudge,
totally.
nudge.
Yeah, he was nuts. So he was just mage killer. Grigek, the mage killer, was what his title was. And he was nuts. So good. So yeah, they found the back entrance and then basically one hit glass staff, and that was it. They just killed him. Or no, sorry, they knocked him unconscious. He had decided to knock him unconscious at the last second instead of killing him. And then they took his staff and they brought him back to Sildar. And Sildar said, "Okay, well, you know, we're not the ones to judge him. I'll take him back to Neverwinter for judgment." And one of my party members, one of my adventurers, said, "Nope, fuck that. I want to kill him here and now." So he used his persuasion check against Sildar, and Sildar said, "Yep." Off with his head.
Fair enough. Off with his
Off with his head, and that's what happened. That was how we dealt with Glassstaff. Which was somewhat like both unnerving and unexpected. Because I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You're not actually gonna do that, are you? They were like, yeah, we wanna kill him. Okay. All right, why not?
That's
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I had definitely had the rolls and everything to let him die. The party didn't, but I figured I could use that as a neat little adventure hook if I decided to host another thing in the Sword Coast. Mm-hmm. And what happened with Glassstaff? And I honestly, sorry, Jingle's asking what the following song is. I've got no clue what the following song is. I literally just went in and typed in Twitch sound alerts, and that was one of the things that showed up, and I liked the sound of it, and it just happened to line up with the dab thing that played really well. So but that being said, I'm also 4 followers away from the follow goal.
Nice.
So woo. Glassstaff, okay, so the party went through area 11, and they were like, he's probably behind this door, but we're gonna be quiet about it. We're gonna set up an ambush. Mm-hmm. And he has that fine familiar, and they noticed the rat when they walked in.
Yeah. Yeah, my party completely avoided the rat, actually. They avoided that whole room. Even at the end, they managed to.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, they noticed the rat, and the rat, of course, he's connected with it telepathically, so it's like, oh, people are setting up an ambush. He took that entire time, like, he as soon as he got solid confirmation that they were going to breach, mm-hmm. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna go. And he went out the back door, and he made sure, and like, still with his telepathic connection, he was still able to go, they're still taking their time setting this up. I'm just gonna make sure this is closed. So he did actually close the door.
Okay.
And started making his way out of the manor.
Nice.
So they storm the room, they find the letter, and it's like, this is bullshit. Where the fuck is this guy? What do you mean there's no final boss? This is bullshit. Like, and they're looking through the room trying to find hints of where he went, and someone found the secret door and was like, that fucker. And so they started following his tracks through Area 7, then through Area 6, to where the dwarf collected all of the crossbow bolts. Mm-hmm. The wizard collected a crossbow, but didn't take any of the bolts or anything, just whatever. And got into Area 5, they found Sildar and the rest of the Dendrar family, freed them, dealt with the Red Brands there, and of course I just gave Sildar his stuff back, not realizing, I could have totally sent that off to Cragmaw Castle, but again, didn't read far enough ahead. Worked their way out through Area 4, get back through Area 3, they avoided the pit, that someone did fall into it, I can't remember who at this point, but and they left. And I was like, okay, where the hell could this guy have gone? He could not have gotten that far. Mm-hmm. And then they got into town, and they figured, okay, well, if this is Glassstaff, oh, I skipped a part because when they encountered Sildar in the prison cell, they also showed him the letter, and like the letter that the Black Spider had left, and it was like, there's no way on earth that he's the fucking, there's no way he's Glassstaff, no way. And Sildar spent the rest of the whole escape from the manor as like he was distraught. He was betrayed. Like he thought he could trust this guy, but like they were like brothers. Like legitimately, it played out like Star Wars. Like, you were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. And then, of course, Glassstaff was a dick.
Yeah.
Now, in the Glassstaff encounter, which they figured, wait, if he's the head of the Red Brands, he's probably at the Sleeping Giant. So they encountered him at the Sleeping Giant.
Okay.
And this is where it got interesting because I had to modify his stat block.
Oh, okay.
Because with how he was currently written, he was very easy to kill, very quick to deal with, and it was like, nope, this can't happen like this. Yeah. So I made a few modifications. I'm going to go back to the appendix, because Appendix A, I think, is where the items are, because it's his Staff of Defense, right?
Yeah.
So instead of just giving him the +1 to the armor class, I give it a few abilities. Using the stat block for the evil mage, instead of just giving him the +1, I made the Glassstaff a staff of mage armor, so he could at will cast mage armor once a day. Okay. However, if he abused it, like went once a day for 8 days straight, there's a chance the glass staff would shatter, in which case everything's gone.
Yeah.
And then I made him use Misty Step a couple times, and with the Sleeping Giant, I put a window in the side of the building, because he had a bunch of Red Brands come out and start helping him, and they were dealing with them, like picking them off, and he was making his way. He drank a potion of invisibility. They picked up on his escape, and he moved over to where, when he fired off a magic missile, it would hit a few people, and then when he was being chased down, he was like, fuck this, looks in through the window, and Misty Step. He just vanishes. He didn't go far. He went into the building, and it was like, where the fuck did he go? And then everyone started perception checks. It's like, I can't find him. Where is he? Someone had the idea of looking inside the building. It's like, he's in here. And they knocked him out, and Sildar said, I'm taking him back to Neverwinter to fucking try his ass. He's not gonna live to see tomorrow. He'll spend the rest of his days in prison. And people tried to go, no, we want to kill him. Let's just off with his head right now. And it was like, no, I'll take him back to Neverwinter. And seeing as you guys are leaving town anyway, I guess I'll accompany you up until a point, because they decided they were going to go back to Cragmaw Cavern and grab all the boxes for Lion Shield Coaster. Now, this is where I let them use a loophole in the wording of Mage Hand. The 50-foot rope weighs less than 10 pounds. So, Mage Hand allows you to carry things that as long as they are under 10 pounds. So what I did was I allowed my players to use Mage Hand and the 50-foot rope, tie up all of the boxes, and then the Mage Hand could just carry and drag along. No strength check required.
Awesome. We had one of the things that happened with our Glassstaff encounter was they knew Glassstaff was there, and that he was like one of the old party members of Sildar and Gundren, and like I made it as if they had all been part of an adventuring party or several, like one or several times in the past. And so the whole thing was with Glassstaff, they knew about the staff. They knew that he was Sildar's old friend, and that was why they knocked him unconscious, like in the moment, and they wanted to take him back to Sildar. And then that's what surprised me when they were like, yeah, okay, we want to kill him. It's just like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? But when they knocked him unconscious, we have an adventurer as part of my party who is very greedy with items. like extremely greedy. So as soon as I said Glassstaff falls over unconscious, he says, "I run across the room and pick up the Glassstaff and run out of the room." I was just like, oh, okay. You pick up the Glassstaff. He was a 453-pound turtle. Like, okay, you shamble across the room, pick up the Glassstaff. The rest of your party looks at you in surprise as you lumber out of the room. Does anybody want to do anything? somebody says, yeah, I shoot an arrow into his foot. Oh my god, the party is turning on itself for staff of defense. Like, you gotta be kidding me. But my party was not nearly as creative as yours in terms of like their traps and their setups. Mine was a lot more straightforward.
Oh yeah, no, I was impressed that they came up with that one. Like, don't get me wrong, my players are intelligent. Like, they are smart and they are witty when it comes to, like, especially the wizard, who's always cracking quick quips. Like, you open the door for an insult, he's gonna, if you open it a crack, he'll kick it open and say, "Here's the joke."
Nice.
So I'm just making some modifications because I'm getting ready to take a break here as well. Because let's face it, we've been live for an hour, no issues or anything, and let's face it, we could use a break. Give us a moment to stretch our legs. And I figured, between part 2 and part 3 is the golden opportunity to take this break.
Sure.
So give me 1 second just to finish up this here. Yeah, no, they tried to say, let's kill him now, and then no, I was like, well, while you're leaving town, we will deal with this. And so they went and got the Lion Shield coaster stuff, brought it back, and then Linene, I think, is the name. I think.
Linene,
Linene. So I made her a bit of a town historian as well.
Okay.
Like, she collects, like, historical artifacts, saw Talon, and I was like, I want your sword. Like, I really want your sword. And it's a historical artifact. Like, that one was used for a lot of shit. And then I also gave it a little bit of power, a little bit of a higher power as well. I made sure that it had a +5 against Drow.
Okay.
Which will help, but at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, I feel it was a little overpowered, like, just as it is, with how the player's playing with it. But yeah, I gave it a little bit of an extra oomph just to.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a lot.
Well, it'll help a lot later on, but they're also leveling at an alarming rate, because they haven't been running away from red brands. They've been taking them head on, saying, "You guys are assholes. I'll fucking kill you," and you're dead now.
Nice.
But yeah, so Glassstaff got dealt with. We're now back in Phandelver. We're in between quests. We've dealt with the red brand threat. I say now is an excellent time to take a break, so... And welcome back. Again, I am joined with an all-around great guy here, Cubos of Cubos Games. Cubos Games here on Twitch. Again, welcome back, Cubos.
Thank you.
And welcome back to you guys, the listeners / viewers. If you're listening to this live on Twitch or watching it live on Twitch, it's a stagnant image, so feel free to have this play in the background if you'd like. When we last left off with our adventurers, we were talking about the Lost Mines of Phandelver. We had just finished discussing the Red Brand hideout and how our groups dealt with it. And now we are entering part 3. Now, this is major spoiler territory for anyone who has not run this module that would like to, or if you are currently running the module with your group, this is major spoiler territory. So, if you are one of my viewers who is currently in this part, there you will know exactly what point is where you are. Have fun and enjoy the spoilers. Otherwise, take it away, Cubos.
Um, so where did we leave off? Sorry, we were at.
Part 3. We had just finished taking out the red brands and putting Glassstaff to whichever method of questioning or paying for his actions.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So my party killed Glassstaff, and
And mine didn't decide to let him go with Sildar. Sildar just said, no, I'm taking him with me. You guys are going to deal with it, or you guys are going to kill me along with it.
okay. And then I had my party do a whole bunch of side quests right after that. They did like the Old Owl Well. They did the Agatha's Lair. They basically finished up everything that wasn't storyline driven, like or the main quest lines.
Oh yeah, that is definitely what part 3 is.
Yeah, so they finished up all their stuff. Talked to Agatha. Didn't realize that they could get different information out of Agatha.
Oh yeah,
and that was pretty funny in itself. And then they went on to Thunder Tree, and Thunder Tree has the what was it here? The green dragon and all the ash zombies.
yeah, Green Dragon and the Ash Zombies.
So they went and made sure that none of them could be hit by ash zombies. They were like, I forget where it said. Somebody told them in the quest or in like the talking to the townspeople or somewhere along the lines. I can't remember. I don't have my note in front of me for that, but somebody told them about ash zombies. And so they knew that they had to hit the zombies before they actually touched them so that they wouldn't get the puff on them and be poisoned. So they dealt with that and then went through the whole town after they talked to the druid. And instead of trying to kill the dragon, which is what like the druid wants them to just drive it off, this is where they got kind of creative. And they used their persuasion skills and told the dragon that they would clear out Cragmaw Castle for it, leave it all of the gold, or bring the gold back, because I made the dragon very treasure-oriented. And then the dragon could inhabit the Cragmaw Castle once they were done with it, and that was how they were going to drive it off. So they went to go...
I see.
Yeah, they went to go deal with all of that, but in trying to persuade the dragon, they had to use their one of them had to use their inspiration points to make a reroll, because they rolled like a 3 on their persuasion and the dragon was about to attack.
Oh yeah.
And then they go, oh, I'm gonna use my inspiration to reroll this. I said, okay, fine. So he re-rolls and he gets a 20.
Let's talk inspiration real quick. So the way I use inspiration is at the end of every one of our sessions, I'll have the group vote who should get inspiration.
Okay.
They'll start it with a point of inspiration. And the book says you can only have 1 inspiration point at a time. So whoever currently has inspiration, like it allows for my wizard who can't roll for crap to re-roll on advantage. Mm-hmm. That's what I do. Instead of just re-rolling the 1. Yeah. So instead of just re-rolling 1 die, I give them, well, here's 2 dice and take the higher number, right?
Yeah.
How do you give out inspiration?
I give it out to the whole party. Even if you have inspiration, you can be given inspiration, but you can't have more than 1. So it was a party-wide feature. And the whole point of that was supposed to be for them, they had to work together, right? You live and die by your party was kind of the way that I made them play. And so when they gained inspiration, they gained it as a group. They were allowed in this campaign. I've told them that it'll be much more strict in like the next level of gameplay. But in this campaign, I said that you can use it like for whatever. If you want to re-roll whatever, but that's what it's used for, is strictly re-rolling. You can't use it to like get bonus experience. You can't use it for other things. It's only for re-rolling. So they all agreed, okay, yeah, that seems fine. And yeah, so they would use it for any rerolls, like if they failed a check, or if they wanted to reroll a persuasion or intimidation, or if they missed an attack. Like as long as they had 1 point of inspiration, they could use it for any reroll. And I would give out inspiration for things like if the bugbear was doing his drunken boxing and hit.
Oh yeah.
There was one case where they fight 12 zombies by the Old Owl Well, I think. And he uses drunken boxing. Whirlwind attacks 4 zombies that were surrounding him, and then with his bonus attack, Sparta kicks 1 more, and it hit so hard, it hit a critical hit. He hit it so hard that he blew his foot through the middle of the zombie and hit the one directly behind it. So it was so inspiring. The whole thing was so inspiring to the party that they all gained inspiration. And then there were times where like one character would defeat some monster or something. Like last night, for instance, as nearing the end of our 12th hour of playing, the one guy starts singing the Final Fantasy VII winning theme song, and the whole party picked it up with him. They all sang it together, and not just like the main tune, but like all of the following stuff for like 40 seconds. And I was just like, well, that's pretty inspiring, y'all. Like, you all get a point of inspiration for picking this up together, right? So it was anything that the party did together, they would gain an inspiration for.
I like that. I might adapt that into like right now as it's like for really good role playing, I'll give you inspiration. Mm-hmm. If you come up with a really good idea, like I'll have an idea as to how to resolve an issue mm-hmm. in the campaign. If you come up with a better way to do it, cool, your character gets inspiration.
Yeah, sweet.
And then the dwarf bard, the player, for him, he's the guy who cracks the quick quips mm-hmm. and why he enjoys the cantrip Vicious Mockery so much.
Okay.
He's constantly cracking these quick quips, these god-awful dad jokes, but I love them because they're funny. Yeah. I'll give him inspiration for the dad jokes.
Nice. Yeah, I would do that too. Yeah, that's perfect.
Like, it lets the player know, like, keep it, like, don't abuse this, but at the same time, like, don't change it. Like your sense of humor.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree.
And you were talking about dealing with the dragon in Thunder Tree. Mm-hmm. I have yet to encounter the dragon with this group, so I like the idea of playing him like his wealth is the most important part. Like, I like that.
Yeah, he's supposed to be this greedy young green dragon. And what they do is actually, I think that they convinced the cultists to go and see the dragon with them, because they went to see the cultists first. So they all go and talk to it together. And they end up double-crossing the cultists. The dragon eats them, but is so enraged that it attacks. It luckily misses all of them with its, like, with the cone breath that it does.
Yeah.
So otherwise they might have actually died. And
sorry, I'm just looking for the cultists. Sorry. Like I said, I've read all of chapter 3 so many times. It's like, okay, I need to cool down a bit, pump the brakes.
Yes.
Come back.
So they deal with the cultists in town by basically feeding them to the dragon. And then they convince the dragon, because the whole thing too is the spiders, like the dragon eats the spiders. So they were making part of their deal with the dragon was to double cross the cultists and feed them to the dragon. And the dragon is, I wouldn't say happy about it, but like is okay with this arrangement. And then, but the dragon was also very strong. I rolled for every single monster. I rolled their hit points instead of taking the average. And I told all of the adventurers, like, I don't want anybody taking averages. I want everybody to roll for all their stuff. I want it properly randomized. The averages are fine, but things in life and in games and everything is random. So I want to do all these rolls. So I rolled, and I should have prefaced this with why, but I also roll like abnormally high. Like I tend to roll very high numbers, and it's not, I'm not trying to do it. Obviously, it just happens. And
There's a few creatures where I will roll the health block for,
yeah.
like the wizard at the Old Owl Well, which we'll cross that bridge in a moment. I rolled for his health because the fact that he's with so many zombies, it's really hard to make a lengthy fight out of that, and it's also with the health average, which is what I normally use. Things die so quickly, especially with the half orc who gets such an incredible bonus because of her rage. It's like, well, there's no point to me. There's no point to making it so then this thing can't, like, this thing needs to die, but it shouldn't be dying this fast.
And I rolled the health for every monster, not every specific monster, but like if a group of zombies was together, then they all had whatever I rolled for the health. But I usually rolled fairly high. So the dragon ended up with 145 out of a possible 160 hit points.
Yeah, take your power word kill and shove it elsewhere.
Yeah, I was just like, look, y'all, this is the way it's going to be. I'm sorry. And they took it in stride. They were all like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, fair enough. Like, let's do it that way, right?
So
yeah, go ahead.
Let's pump the brakes on Thunder Tree, because, like I said, I'm not there yet with the group. What I have done with the group is I've done Coneyberry and Agatha's Lair. I've also done the Old Owl Well and Wyvern Tor.
Okay.
So upon leaving town and dealing with and grabbing the stuff for the Lion Shield Coaster, bringing it back, they went to the Stonehill Inn, and everybody was happy that they dealt with the Red Brands. They're like, you dealt with the Red Brands. We needed this. This is a problem we needed dealt with, and you guys have finally dealt with it. Like, thank you. And so Toblin was like, I don't give a fuck how much you run me into the ground. Like, you guys just dealt with the biggest problem in town, so, like, drinks are on the house. Like, go nuts. And of course the wizard goes, what's your strongest, most expensive shot? And he goes, here it is. And the only time I've seen the wizard roll a nat 20 is on this Constitution save. Which he needed, otherwise he would have, like, the wizard doesn't have very much health. Like, it's a d6 hit die. What it would have done was it would have taken his health, turned the max pool from 25 to 4.
Nice.
And that's his max health. He still has 1d6 hit die, but his health pool can consist of no more than 4.
Right.
Because in order to make a shot that strong in this time and age, you would have to put some pretty dangerous chemicals into it. So, yeah, of course, nat 20 Constitution save. It's like, that's your strongest? Fuck. And then Harbin Wester, I don't know what his name is, but the town master says, we've had reports of dragons and orc raids in Wyvern Tor. Can you go deal with them? And so they went off and dealt with that, but they didn't deal with it immediately. Like, the entire town was here celebrating the fact the Red Brands are gone, except for Lady What's-Her-Name, who owns who runs the Miners' Exchange. Yeah. She was pissed, and there was a couple of Red Brands left in town, which, again, the party didn't encounter them until later. But Darren Ettermath came by and said if you could deal with the zombies that I'm hearing word of over here, I'd appreciate it. And then even Agatha. In fact, the Sister Gariel of Gariel, everyone pronounces it differently, but I pronounce it Gariel. She was so impressed with how loyal to his order the warlock was. I almost called him a cleric because he's playing a warlock of the Celestial. Okay. But she was so happy with it, like, so proud of the way he operates that it was like, we want to make you one of the Watchers. And then my player went and did some research, and it was like, I was just a Watcher. I just became a Watcher of essentially the Illuminati.
Perfect.
Because that's essentially that's what the Harpers are.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a Watcher for the Harpers, and they had a big ceremony there, and she went off, and here's a. No, that didn't happen until after she dealt with, or after they dealt with Conyberry and Agatha. But yeah, she gave the cleric the silver comb, and it was like, take this to Agatha and ask her about this here.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went and dealt with Wyvern Tor. Let one of the orcs go. And it was like... And the wizard was like, we'll let you go. And then everyone else was like, that orc is going to come back with a bigger army and is going to demand your head on a pike, and you handed your head to him on a silver platter. Like, you are an idiot. And he goes, a drunken idiot. So, after dealing with that, it was like, oh wait, according to the map that we were given from Toblin, Old Owl Well should just be to the north. So they went to the north. Mm-hmm. Came across the wizard, and they started out by killing zombies, and then the wizard's all like, well, we can resolve this peacefully, and then Warlock of the Celestial, you're doing necromancy, and I'm not cool with that. You're gonna fucking die and pay for your sins. So when I was rolling the random encounters, I rolled an ogre for the final hour of their travel to get to the Old Owl Well. Mm-hmm. In rolling for the ogre, it was like, well, I'll just save this for later. And I made the ogre attack, so it was either they teamed up with the wizard and dealt with the ogre together, or they would kill the wizard and try and take on the ogre themselves. They chased the wizard off again for another plot hook or another adventure thing later on if I needed it to. And they finished off the ogre, finished off the zombies. The name of the wizard, Hamun Kost.
Yep, Hamun Kost.
Or Hamun. Yeah, he got away. And upon returning to town after dealing with Agatha and Conyberry, they encountered... I rolled the random encounters. I rolled the D12. Every hour that went by, they fought 4 owlbears.
Jeez.
They took on the owlbears. They won against the owlbears. They leveled up extremely fast, so now they're over-leveled. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, the barbarian, which is the tank and has the highest health pool, is now also holding a sword that has a +5 against drow.
Awesome.
If that's not broken, I don't know what is. Like, legitimately, I want to run these characters through the Tomb of Horrors just because I think it would be interesting to see how what trap they fall into and die. But we'll talk about the Tomb of Horrors another time. Only because it is by far one of my favorite modules.
Yeah, I haven't played it
yet. Here's what I can tell you about the Tomb of Horrors. You want to grab the 1978 version and translate it from AD&D to 5e yourself, because the 5e rendition in Tales of the Yawning Portal is slightly dumbed down to make it more survivable. But back to Conyberry and Agatha's lair. Conyberry, I googled a map and just went with that and used it. And when it came to Agatha, they asked about the spell book.
Okay.
And then it was like, wait, do you think that guy had the spell book? So now they want to find him a little bit, and it's like, please don't.
Please
for the love of God, don't. There's nothing written in the book for this, and I don't have it. Oh, I got another follow.
Pengu!
Thank you. Again, no camera right now, but I can tell you right now, you are... I can't give you jazz hands, because I already gave jazz hands to Jingle. But I will give you finger guns, because... you've heard Pengu talk, right?
Oh, yes.
He sounds like Snake, almost damn identical. So I'm gonna give you finger guns, and just so you know that it's finger guns. They got snaps. Thank you, Pengu, for the follow. I have to update another thing on the thing, but I can do that while I talk. Agatha. They asked about the book, and then they encountered some orcs on their way into finding Agatha.
Okay.
And this is where I like the wizard. The wizard is a very diplomatic wizard, despite being a drunken idiot. Despite being a drunken idiot, I like the fact that he plays diplomatically. He would much rather roll persuasion, diplomacy, that sort of thing, instead of fighting things out. And he pulled up a stump and a couple of small logs to sit down on because the orcs were also looking for Agatha. He didn't figure out why, but he told them that he sat down and poured out some orcish wine and said, and he knows orcish because the half orc is orcish or knows orcish, and that's how they communicate outside of game is orcish. Okay. So they're talking to these orcs in orcish. The dwarf and the the halfling don't understand shit. So as they're talking, it's like, what are you guys doing in the woods? Like, I'm surprised you guys haven't tried to kill us yet. And it's like, well, you haven't given us a reason to kill you yet. Like, but what I can tell you is I do appreciate the wine. The wine is a nice gesture. And it's like, I know I love the wine. The wine is very good. It's like, but we're here because we need to ask her a question. And we're possibly going to kill her. And of course, they're in her area. It's just, it's like they're in Agatha's area. She hasn't revealed anything to her yet. It's just they're in the area where she is. She can listen to this. She's listening to the whole thing. It's like, we have to ask her a question, but if she's going to be hostile towards us, we're going to fucking kill her. And it was like, she heard that. I rolled to make sure she heard it. It was like, yep, she heard that clear as day. Now there's a chance she's not going to appear. I was like, and of course the wizard goes, well, if you guys could just back off and we'll let you know what we find. Like, may our paths cross again? And I was like, yeah, you spared us, we spared you, we got it. Like, they became friends with the orcs. Okay. So they go in, deal with Agatha. They don't kill her, they don't attack her, they ask her the question, and she's like, you got one question. That's a second one, and I will answer it because it's a simple answer. No. And that's all you get, and then she vanished, and that was it. So it was like,
see, I had...
You don't think that wizard had the book, did you?
When I had them encounter Agatha, they... one of the party members, I forget who it was exactly, but not the most diplomatic of characters throughout the whole game, or throughout our whole session, and for some reason, he is super diplomatic during the exchange. He opens with like, "Oh, dearest Agatha, untold beauty has been. We've been told of your beauty and etc. etc." And she's like, "Oh, you're such a charmer!" Like, and I'm like, "Where the hell is this coming from?" Not normally how you react to things. And it was perfect because that was exactly what they needed to do so that Agatha wouldn't fuck them up, or just leave. And it was just like, how did you know to do this? And later he's like, I just had a feeling, man. Like when you're dealing with hags, you gotta be nice, right? Okay.
I love how he words it. When you're dealing with hags, you gotta be nice.
I was just like, no way you figured this out. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
What was that meme? It was like, my metagaming player. Wait, that doesn't have that ability. I have altered the stat block. Pray that I don't alter it any further. Oh, yeah.
So I had them, and like the Hammond Cost, the Necromancer, that was where our Bugbear earned his Mage Killer title, was because of Hammond Cost. He also one-hit Hammond Cost.
I know monks are broken. Like, don't get me wrong. Monks are definitely broken. But the book has the average being 22 health, and you roll notoriously high. What did you roll for his
I
health?
think it was 27 or 20, 24 or 27 for Hammond.
And you're telling me he did. Wait, do you do the negative 10 or negative their hit points before they're dead, or do you just, once they hit 0, they are dead or unconscious, depending on how much non lethal damage they take?
Once they are at 0 health, they are unconscious or dead, depending on what the characters want them to be.
So the way I do the health, this is actually a nice tie-in, and this is something I learned as a DM, is when doing like that sort of thing, if they are fighting a creature and they're doing non-lethal damage, I go until we'll say a goblin. We'll use a goblin's health, or actually because Hammond cost is your health form was 27. I rolled 32. Um, no, not 32. I rolled mid 30s, like 35 to 40-ish area, but I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head because they only did 33 damage to him. But once the creature hits 27, if it's mostly lethal damage, they're dead.
Okay.
If they have say 14 points of lethal and then the rest of it is non-lethal but it equals out to 0, then they're unconscious.
Okay.
Basically, if they do a combination of non-lethal and lethal damage, if there's more lethal damage, then they're dead because they essentially bleed out from either internal bleeding or external bleeding, or you hit a pretty important artery.
Okay.
That's the way I view it. I'm not sure if you're the same.
No, I usually just like if they're fighting something that they do more than enough damage on, like if they reduce it to -10. If something basically, how do I put it this way? Things that have 40 health, if they put it to -10 at some point, then that thing is dead. Like they cannot actually make it unconscious. It is dead. So if they go more damage than 1/4 of the health into the negative wise, then it's dead.
Okay.
And that way they can't make the choice. It's just like, well, you were overly aggressive and this happened. There were times where like if they hit critical hit, then they could do certain, depending on what they said they were doing, they would do certain things, but they almost never were like, I strike for an artery, or I go to hit him in the hamstring, or like his Achilles tendon, or any of that kind of stuff. They were never very specific, so I'd have to be like, okay, you critically hit this character and chop off his arm, basically, and it takes half its health. It would just be like very, very specific like that.
Oh yeah, that's they will. My players, what they'll do is they'll say, I'm going to attack this creature," and they'll roll. And while they're rolling, I will actually, based off of the outcome, think of how this would play out based off of the roll.
Yeah. Like I would have my bugbear that's doing whirlwind attacks. If he hit a critical with his whirlwind attack, then it was just like depending on the enemy, if it was zombies, then it would be like your quarterstaff lops the head off of all 3 zombies that you were spinning into.
Oh yeah.
So that's like, I just was like, sometimes it wasn't about just how much damage they were doing. It was just like, okay, you critically hit this zombie and it's clearly like you've basically bat the head off of it as if it's a baseball.
Okay, yeah. So this brings us into another thing that I also do differently as a DM, because like critical hits, they are amazing things when they do happen. Mm-hmm. However, the way I do critical hits is based slightly off of 3 point. It's actually based off of 3.5's thing entirely. It's if you roll a natural 20, then you have to roll to confirm the crit. Mm-hmm. Basically, if your second roll is a regular hit, or it would get past their AC, then congratulations, you're doing double damage. With sneak attacks, normally it's just the damage die that doubles, but I double the entire sneak attack as well. Yeah. Because the book states that like these are supposed to be the next step above your normal human being. So I like to make them feel like they are the big answer to the
Yeah.
world. Um, with what is it? That's what I do with critical hits. With critical failures, I do the same thing. If they roll a nat one, roll to confirm the critical failure. If it's a miss, then well, either some crazy thing happens, your sword goes flying out of your hands, or the you strike, but you don't hit the enemy with the strong or with the sharp edge of your blade. You hit it with the side, and it bends out of shape. So now your weapon is warped, and you can't use it right now. Something like that. Like, but by doing it this way, it gives them a chance to either just miss or fumble or hit and strike an artery, sort of thing. Like it when it does happen, it's like, oh my gosh, this is that much more epic. In the situation where you roll a natural 20 and then follow it up with another natural 20, if you confirm the crit, the thing's instantly dead.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's triple damage, and let's face it, with what level you guys are, anything you fight at this point, it's just instantly dead. But I also feel like doing it this way, I can do that with NPCs and monsters, and it gives them a fair advantage.
Right.
That's one of the things I migrated over from 3.5 to 5e because I liked how it seemed fair.
Yeah, I've got. I mean, like as I was saying, I roll fairly high in terms of averages. Um, so I got the characters got hit by critical hits a lot, and I just made it the same for them as it was for the monsters. It was just like you dealt twice the number of dice attacks for a critical hit. So if it was like a 2d6 attack, then they would do 4d6 instead. And same with monsters back at them. If it was I think they got critically hit by a bugbear, one of the characters, one time, and the bugbear is normally 2d8 if it hits, and so they got hit for 4d8. Like that was just it was even across the board because I didn't want them to feel like they were that much stronger than all of the monsters they were fighting, because I'd already given them, in a lot of cases, they've got extra like +1 armors and weapons, or they've got lots more healing potions than is necessary. Like, I've given them other ways to be more powerful, but I wanted it to be the same for them as for monsters across the board for critical hits.
I can dig that. I can dig it. So yeah, that was Agatha's Lair, Coneyberry, Wyvern Tor that I covered. What did you do? Did you encounter Wyvern? If I can speak today, did you deal with Wyvern Tor, or did they branch off and do that later?
No, they did that one. Trying to think, that was the one that takes place in the kind of canyon. Um,
Yeah.
and I had them do. I made it as if it was in like the bottom of a valley, but like a very narrow valley. So they had to approach the cave single file or come at it from the slopes above. But I said that on the one side it was all trees, so it was like good cover, and the other side it was wide open, so easy to come down, like not difficult terrain, but also wide open. People could see you. So they had to pick, and they sent, I think, 3 of their 4 people went single file up the road, and the bugbear used. He's got like the illusion cantrip, so he created
Ah.
an illusion of himself right at the doorway, and then the party members on the road were like 20 or 30 feet behind the thing. So they called out to the cave and had like a bunch of name calling and stuff, trying to get the characters or the monsters in there riled up. And so they had one of them like rushed out the door to punch what turned out to be the illusion, and then stumbled. And that was when the other 3 party members, we have like a ranger was sitting just off of the valley floor in the trees. So as long as he rolled, I think it was like a 5 or more, then he could shoot through the tree line without hindrance because he was just near the edge. And so he he used his attack, and then I think one of the party members behind had a hand crossbow. So they wounded the thing enough that they could deal with it, and they decided to let it go back into the cave and warn its friends. And the whole thing was that the rest of the monsters came out, and as the last one came out, um, the bugbear dropped down from one of the trees overhanging the entrance and did his surprise attack. So
Nice.
so he did the surprise attack on the last one, and then the party members had all of the other things lined up. So it was just like a walkthrough from front and back. And then the ogre was the last thing, and it was still in the cave. So they went in and dealt with the ogre.
The way the party dealt with Wyvern Tor was they branched off of the Tribor Trail and went through the canyon sort of thing. And they encountered a few things, like mostly sturges. I could not stop rolling sturges, and I tell you, after a while, I hated seeing sturges. But it's nice because they're small, they're tiny, they're essentially mosquitoes, and that's those are a pest alone in modern day standards. So it was nice seeing them deal with them, but at the same time, it was like, I've got slots for magic missile. Here you go. They're dead. They're gone.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah.
And I know magic missile automatically hits, but I like to give everything a chance to crit. So I will have whoever's casting it roll a d20, and if they roll a nat 20, roll the confirm and enjoy your double damage, your double d4s.
Fair. Yeah.
But that's just because I'm me and I like to be generous to some extent. With Wyvern Tor, after they got to a certain point, they walked up and they had a couple orcs standing outside just keeping watches, like, oh, you're in our area, you shouldn't be here. And they sent one person in to go and get reinforcements, and basically all he did was sound the alarm and let the other orcs know that, hey, get the ogre ready. We got some trouble. So of course this was also before they dealt with Agatha, and we didn't see the true potential of Harry's diplomacy. Harry is the wizard, of course. So he tries to be diplomatic about it. Everyone else is being a pain in the ass and attacking and throwing swords and spells, and it's like, gosh damn it. And they started going through, working their way. They cleared out the Wyvern Tor. The ogre started making its way down, and of course the ogre's a large creature. He's breaking stalagmites, stalactites, the list goes on as he's running through. And because the party, as I mentioned, is over leveled right now, they just took out the ogre like it was nothing, and then it was like, okay, well, we need to change up our strategy a bit. So the orcs arm themselves up with crossbows and stuff, like bows and such, and it was like, we're gonna ambush these guys, and then as they walk through, we'll peg them full of arrows, and then they'll drop. We'll take their loot. We'll use their better equipment, or their equipment that's better than ours. Like, they put together this whole elaborate scheme, and then I had to reward the players for this because I had never seen them use some of the spells that they did use a majority of the spells that are on their spell lists. And their use of Minor Illusion was, the wizard had Minor Illusion, and the dwarf had Minor Illusion.
Okay.
So they cast Minor Illusion on the halfling to make him run into the brunt of it. So they fired arrows into the illusion. It was like, what the hell? Giving away their location. And then they threw another Minor Illusion of the halfling, and that one got pegged with arrows. Then they threw more minor. Then they kept, like, every time the illusion got found out, they made another one, and they'd throw it in, and the halfling would make his way through, and they left one orc alive. And it was like, what do you know? What are you guys doing here? Why are you here? And piss off.
Yeah, I had my whole party
And that
did
was
not
where-
take prisoners. They said, "Fuck that."
Well, like I said, the wizard was trying to be very diplomatic, despite being the town drunk. But like, he did great things, and the orc ran off. They didn't encounter him again, but at least it's another hook if I need to bring him back for
Yep.
anything. From there, again, Old Alwell dealt with Hamuncost, and from Hamuncost to Agatha, the orcs that they encountered on their way to Agatha, they befriended, and the orcs offered them like escort service, so like the party didn't have to deal with any pests or anything like that. Every time they encountered something, the orcs would deal with it, and then they would meet up every few hours, like, or at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and it was like we lost one of our own today, and Harry would pull out a bottle of orcish wine and is like, I've got a few of these, but let's pour out a drink for your friends. And then they would pour out some drinks and they'd pass the bottle around. And it's like, tradition is you drink from the same bottle. And it was like, one of the players is a germaphobe, but their character isn't. And so this was a little bit of a conflict for them. It was like, because player wise they didn't want to do it, but their character was like, I'm down for this. And so I was very proud of this player for overcoming that.
Nice.
So they passed around a bottle of orcish wine. They finished it off. They rested for the night, and it was like, here's some gold to do the same thing you did yesterday. And instead of just deducting experience from them, I let them keep like a small portion of the experience that the orcs would have gotten,
Right.
and added that to the pool to split amongst the party.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the ways I was able to reward them for the wizard in being drunk, his diplomacy.
Yeah, I let like when they encountered the dragon, for me, they didn't they didn't drive it off yet. They just managed to basically come up with a solution at the time. And so I gave them, I think, 500 of the 2000 experience for that. And then they get more later when they deal with the dragon. But that's what I did. Same thing is like I would just parcel out experience if they didn't quite meet the objective, but they found a different way of circumventing it.
And if the way they found to circumvent it was better than the way I thought they were going to resolve it, then hell yeah, here's some bonus.
Yeah.
But now the party is in Phandelver again, and they had the orcs skin an owlbear.
Okay.
So then the half-orc barbarian could make a pelted cape out of the owlbear fur.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to Frida to have it sewn together and stitched and all that stuff to make it look good. So they spent a week in Phandalin just to get all this done. And after reporting all the different things to the different people that they had dealt with, Wyvern Tor to the town master, the zombies and Hamuncost to Duran, Darren gave his adventuring scale mail to the party and said, there's not a lot you can do with it, but here you go. This is the best I can do. I appreciate your help. I've been here ever since I took an arrow to the knee because one of my players is a Skyrim player, like hardcore Skyrim player. So I tried to use the Jarl voice for the characters because I tried to do the voice acting bit too. So here is my scale mail from when I was a wee adventurer like yourselves, but now that I've taken an arrow in the knee, I can't exactly do that anymore. I appreciate your efforts, and that was... So they got a suit of armor, and the barbarian took it to the smithy and had it tempered to be able to have a cape, so that's where the owlbear pelt came in.
Okay.
So, yeah, I gave her a nice set of scale mail of +1, I think it was, and from there they just rested up, and the next module I'm running is the Dragons of Icespire Peak or something like that, which takes place in the same exact area as the Lost Mines of Phandelver.
Oh.
Phandalin is the center point for it. So the last session before Christmas, I had the three players that were able to show up to the session roll up some new characters for this one because I wanted to give them a chance to do a little bit of variety instead of just going, this is what we like, this is what we want to play, sort of
Yeah.
thing. So you mentioned in the beginning that it took you 29 years to get into D&D. As someone who has been playing since 3.5, I would look at the book and it was like, rogues sound pretty interesting. I like rogues. I like being murder hobo steely McSteel son. So I rolled up a rogue and I fell in love with rogue ever since.
Okay.
The thing is, when I first started playing, my DM told me just if I wanted to play rogue again, I could play rogue, and I didn't want to branch from it. So every group that I played, I had a rogue, and then after a few years, I had a group of friends that we played D&D together on Saturdays. So I rolled up an assassin, a 3.5 assassin, which is a prestige class, and then this character died because he did something stupid. He broke into the blacksmith's house. The blacksmith happened to be a vampire. Did not make it out very easily because I was stupid. But this DM made me switch to play something else, so I didn't just play rogue. So I rolled a ninja, which was based off of a monk.
Okay.
And then from there, I didn't get to get the chance to play it, but I did roll up a cleric. Which, again, all fine and dandy. I enjoyed it, but I never, even though I never got to play it, I still enjoyed rolling the character, and it was like, well, too bad I can't play with this group anymore. The reason for it was just my schedule didn't line up with it. But had I been put in a situation where I had to play something different every time, I couldn't just go back to rogue, I would have much preferred that because it would have required me to expand my horizons. Yeah. Now I'm still a diehard rogue person, but I would put either a warlock or a wizard as my next choice of pick.
Okay. I haven't.
So I'm
I've only ever played I played one session of D&D before I've DM'd, and I was a level 8 wizard. It was like a 2 or 3 hour session of D&D. That's my only character experience, and I had no idea what I was doing. But after like DMing now, I know, I guess, a lot more of like the background to a bunch of these characters and what I would want to play. So now I know I want to play like a ranger character, like a dual wielding ranger, just like Drizzt, the character.
Ah, yes. Good old Drizzt Do'Urden.
Yeah, because I read all of those books back when I was a teenager. Like, I've read, I think, all of them at this point. So
I think there's 36 books now, 33 to 36.
Yeah. So like I was not unfamiliar with the D&D lore and universe and stuff and some of its characters, but now there's just sort of like a deeper investment in them because of DMing.
I love the Drizzt books. I read them when I was younger, and I forgot about I never forgot about them. They were always like in the back burner of my mind, but I forgot the story to them. All I remembered was Drizzt, and that was it. So with my Audible subscription, I stockpile the credits, and I get the books with my credits.
Nice.
And then whenever I'm on a road trip or something, like I'm driving by myself, I'll throw on a book and I'll just listen to that. And then if I the thing with driving is it takes forever, and I enjoy sitting in the car. It's just I don't like sitting in silence, and I can only listen to music for so long before it's like I got to take a break. Oh, here's an audiobook that I can listen to.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, that's what I've been using my Audible credits for. The only problem is after I've been driving for a while, I start to forget what's being said in the book, which is why when I'm listening to audiobooks, I'll actually grab a physical copy of the book and follow along with it when I'm not driving.
Right.
But that's just me. But yeah, Drizzt was a huge inspiration to me getting into D&D, and I am very happy to have had that be my introduction.
Yeah, it's a good character. I mean, there's a point where it gets pretty dark, which I didn't appreciate as much. But it was still like it's worth all
Well,
the.
he is a dark elf, but I'm
Well,
going to
yeah.
hell. Oh,
But yeah, like in terms of character creation, I have never actually created my own D&D character, but I enjoy the DMing so much that I don't know if I ever really want to play my own character. I would rather be the driving force behind everybody else's imagination.
I know the feeling. I definitely know the feeling. Um, but yeah, so now we've already gone over everything I've done in in part 3 with my
Mm-hmm.
group. So now this is more or less just from here on out. It's going to be you're telling me us the viewers and myself about your experience and what you've done with it. Um, and from there, I guess I'm just essentially listening in awe and I might throw in 2 cents as to what I'm planning to do here and there.
Okay. Um, well,
So let's start with Thunder Tree. Or actually, I've got more information read up on Cragmaw Castle because that is on the way to Thunder Tree if you're looking at the map.
mhm. um,
And that's also where the party has been like, we should probably go check out this place because this is where Gundren was told to be,
yeah.
or this is where we're told Gundren is.
So we went from Thunder Tree, where they, I guess, dealt with is probably the correct term. They dealt with the dragon, moved on from there with the idea that they were going to go clear Cragmaw Castle right after that. And we would basically do one major encounter a week or a couple of small ones because most of the guys can only play for about 6 hours at a time. And
Ah,
so we would do like Cragmaw Castle would be like one sitting. The Thunder Tree was one sitting, and like I say, the some of the party members jumped in and out depending on like what their availability was and stuff. And so we did Cragmaw Castle. Um, my party was not down with negotiations at all. They said nope, we're here to clear it out, and that's that because they wanted to clear it for the dragon. And
yeah.
the overarching uh, like the characters have this overarching sense of like good and evil as well. Most of them were either lawful good or chaotic or neutral good. We had very little like chaos in the party, and I think it was okay that way. But there was a lot of like good person decision making throughout this whole process, except for the time or two where they're like, no, we want to kill this person. Um, so in Cragmaw, they snuck around. They took different entrances. They used a lot of sneaky tactics, but ultimately, and you find Sildar's gear here if you use the book the way it's supposed to
Yeah.
be. Yeah, not a big deal.
When you read ahead properly.
Yeah, and like Sildar's gear played no real part in any bit of the storyline. I found it was just like he was grateful, and I made up some stuff for Sildar giving them something. Um, he let them keep the chainmail, but took his sword, and he gave them experience, I think. But you find Gundren Rockseeker, um, the one of the brothers, the guy who hired you at
Yeah,
the start,
exactly.
and so they did all this stuff. They found where Gundren was. One person got tipped off to the doppelganger, but he wasn't there, or there is a doppelganger. Um,
Oh yeah, I know.
okay.
I've read Cragmaw Castle so many times already. It's just like, god damn, I need to read Thunder Tree.
So yeah, so they deal with all that, but the character can't make it back to the party in time to tell about the doppelganger, and Gundren dies. The doppelganger, while they're dealing with the boss, Gundren is killed by the doppelganger, and that has the effect of, I mean, it was pretty for some of them it was pretty devastating. They were like, no way, like we need him. And I'm like, well, you don't really need him. He was just like your he was
I
the
think
boss basically.
I think this will. I think the doppelganger, like, because I'm reading it here as we speak,
Mhm.
right? Like, the doppelganger disguise is Grawl is attended by Snarl, a wolf with 18 hit points, and a doppelganger disguised as a female
Mhm.
drow. I think that's going to be a pretty interesting plot twist for the party, especially when the barbarian runs up and swings Talon, and it's got a +5 against drow because of an enchantment I gave it,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it's like that's not dealing an extra 5 damage. What the
Yeah.
fuck? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, my party, they were tipped off to the doppelganger. I can't remember how I did it, but they had a they had that, or the one guy had the tip off, and so as they're trying to save Gundren, he dies. Their contract becomes null and void, but they take the stuff to Sildar, and that was sort of their uh, not bonus, but like the how do you say it? It was like their consolation prize, sort of, that they got something out of Sildar for all of that, and they go back to the dragon after Kragmaw. Kragmaw was actually fairly, um, I don't know, not uninspiring, but like it wasn't a super crazy thing for all of them. They dealt with it fairly systematically because they were sneaking through and taking their time and doing things smart. So there was nothing
Mm-hmm.
detrimental to them there. So they go deal with that, and then they go back to the dragon. And it gets interesting with the dragon because they had said, okay, we're going to clear Kragmaw, give you this place. We leave you all of the gold and stuff, right? And they didn't leave it the gold. They left it basically nothing. Like some of the paintings and stuff they left. But they decided just before talking to the dragon that they were going to pool together 200 gold and drop it at the dragon's feet and say, this is what we brought from there, which was about what they got. So they drop the gold. The dragon says, how do I know you're not lying to me about the amount, right? So they have to persuade.
Please tell me one of your players responded with, "Well, why don't you roll an insight check?"
No, they just were like, well, this is what it is, and if you don't believe us, then we'll fight you, right? And so that's kind of how that went. And the dragon is really not having it. He's just like, this is some bullshit, right? And
Yeah.
so finally the dragon's like, look, last chance, you either give me a reason to leave or you're gonna have to fight. And somebody, I think we had one guy, he was an artificer gnome, and he says, look, why don't we do this? Like, how is the dragon?
Are we talking Unearthed Arcana Artificer Gnome or the new Eberron book Artificer?
An arcana, I believe. um, he just basically pulled up an old character that he had and put it back to level 3. He was just to sit in with us, and so he says, look, the dragon can't carry all of its treasure with it, right? Like that's probably why it won't leave. So we roll and find out that yes, that's why the dragon won't leave, because it can't carry all this hoard that it's been sitting on.
Here's what to do: take two lengths of 50-foot rope, line a large tarp with it, essentially, tie it off, and mage hand drag the thing.
Yeah, so their solution though was to build a box with essentially like a bar on the top so that the dragon could hold it in its claws. And and so that's what they did. They convinced the dragon that they would build this box and shovel all the hoard of treasure into the box for it, and it could lift this box off and carry it to Kragmaw. So the dragon agrees, okay, that's fine, let's do that. It takes them, I think it was like a day and a half to build. So they do the build, and the dragon says, okay, see you later, right? And leaves with the stuff. And they're like, okay, well, is this for real? Like, did we actually do this? And they didn't believe it for a while. So then they talk to the druid, and the druid shows them the way to the Wave Echo Cave, because he's like the only one who knows. And
Good old Radoth.
and that was it. The dragon took off, they know it's at Cragmaw, and they want to deal with it later. They want to go back and fight it. And I'm like, oh, you guys, you are setting up for a bad time. But they want to try it, so
That's a pretty like that's what I like about this adventure is like they leave so many possible loose ends that you could deal with later on, or you could deal with them now, kill everything, and it's like, well, now you've got nothing to look back to this adventure and be like, oh, I remember this person from this adventure.
yeah. And they want to go back to the dragon because now they have Dragon Guard it's like a plate mail that they got from Wave Echo Cave.
Oh yeah,
And it protects against dragon breath weapons. It has it's either resistance or immunity. I can't remember which.
hot damn.
Yeah, and it's actually in the book.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So then, so they dealt with the dragon, and they vowed to like go back later and hunt it down. And then from there, they went to Wave Echo Cave, and Wave Echo they found the second Rockseeker brother was dead in the entrance. And
I was actually gonna propose we take another 5-minute break per se, just because we've been here for now another hour, and I need some water myself. Okay. But yeah, so one more break, and then we'll go into Wave Echo Cave, take some points, and then we'll get onto our final thoughts.
Sounds good.
So, welcome back. It is I, Desmo Flynn, streamer extraordinaire, not really extraordinaire, but amateur enough to make it. And you know the rule, fake it till you make it. I am joined with my guest of honor, Cubos of Cubos Games, here on Twitch and also on Twitter.
Hola.
How are you doing, my dude?
Good. I have about 20 minutes and then I have to go, so.
Have about 20 minutes and then you have to go.
I got dinner with the fam.
Okay. So. Dinner with the fam. Well, luckily I haven't run Wave Echo Cave yet, so this will all be you and all your wise wisdom.
So yeah, I think where we left off just before break was that they had just entered Wave Echo Cave, my party.
Yeah.
So my party, and I haven't actually given any background on my party. We have a bugbear monk who consistently in conversation with NPCs says, "I'm 8 feet tall, motherfucker," as a way of either convincing or intimidating or persuading. So, or also trying to convince me as the DM, like, could you do that? Well, I'm 8 feet tall, motherfucker. Yeah, I guess you could then. We have a Dragonborn Paladin who took, I can't remember exactly what stone or what metal, but they can breathe fire and they're immune to fire. We have a Tiefling Ranger, so also immune to fire. And he is primarily bow focused, longbow specifically. And then we have a Turtle Druid who sits in quite often. And he's fairly powerful, but he's about 450 pounds. And he took the Razorback class, so he can drop into his shell and become immobile, but he gains +2 AC, and because he has the Razorback, anything that touches his shell takes like 1d4 slashing damage, I think. And so the party has figured out that if they shell the druid, the bugbear monk, being 8 feet tall and able to lift and carry things as if he were one size larger, can throw the turtle shell as if this is Mario Kart. And depending on what their rolls are, what their angles of attack are, yeet, and how, whether or not it hits, it can sometimes
the turtle yeet.
Yeah, turtle yeet. It can sometimes bounce to other monsters. So we've had it where like 2 monsters are side by side and the turtle is big enough to hit both, or if it kills one monster, it bounces to the next one. So anyway, these are the kinds of shenanigans that they like to do. And then we've had last night we had a warlock jump in, um, just for because he was in town. We have a wizard who sits in occasionally, but like the core is those first four. And so anyway, they come to Wave Echo Cave finally. This is the sitting that took us 12 hours yesterday. Was just the final piece of the dragon and all of Wave Echo Cave. And so they went through fairly systematically. Um, the thing with them is that they are very cautious, so they sneak around a lot, especially the monk because he's got I forget what it's called exactly, but he gets like +10 to his stealth and is completely silent. So he basically passes any stealth check that I give him.
Of course.
Yeah. So he pawed around. He looked around. They went through all the corridors in the first area, like area 2 on the map. For those who've played it, will have the map. They didn't really find anything, so then they headed south, and their idea was to head left first and then circle all the way back and around up to the final northwest corner, because they found the map of the Wave Echo Cave in Cragmaw Castle. It was under the mattress of the boss. So they had the map, they knew what they were doing, and yeah, they basically cleared it room by room, but they didn't know what was in each room. They just had a rough sketch of all of it. So they cleared, I would say, the bottom northwest third, and then they took a rest, and they had to barricade themselves in a room. And depending on the rest they took, long rests we played as 2 to 4 hours, or sorry, short rests were 2 to 4 hours, and long rests were 8 hours plus. So
Okay.
and they had
I went with the stereotypical 1 hour for the short rest of just doing remedial shit. Like they could. I gave them the entire time they were walking back from Wyvern Tor, for example, back to Phandelver. I gave them, as they weren't the ones dealing with the encounters, it was the orcs that were dealing with the encounters. I gave them just walking there, their short rests, because they weren't doing anything remedial. They weren't doing anything like focus heavy.
Yeah.
They were just going out for a leisurely stroll.
Right. Yeah, I had them. They had to take it 2 hours. So if they were resting in a dungeon for a short time, then they would have to roll. Like I'd roll a d20, and if anything on a 17 plus, 17 to 20 was the roll, then they'd have to encounter something, and their short rest was interrupted. So that was the.
So I'm just gonna respond to my mod here. I think I'm gonna let him know that Cito's being unruly.
So that was our sort of agreement throughout the whole thing, was that if you were going to have a short rest, it was a 2-hour rest. That was time enough to like copy anything from a spell book or take all your potions and have a nap, just general things like that. So
yeah,
they were battered up enough that they had to take a long rest. They used up enough of their spell slots and stuff. They wanted to take a long rest, and there hadn't been anything so loud that anything else would have been heard elsewhere in the cave. So the whole thing was they barricaded themselves in one of the southern rooms, and they said, okay, let's take a long rest. So I rolled a d20 for every 2 hours they were in there. So the first 2 hours, nothing. Second 2 hours, nothing. Third 2 hours, nothing. And then out between hours 6 and 8, they encountered 2 bugbears. So they had all their short rest stuff, but their long rest was interrupted. And so a bunch of them still didn't have their spell slots. They had to deal with the 2 bugbears at the doorway, which our bugbear had thought ahead and put a trap down so that they would know what was going to happen. So the bugbear was trapped. They dealt with those 2, and they said, okay, we still need a long rest. Like, none of us can do anything. So they went and cleared another room, and then barricaded in that room and used the bugbear's illusion cantrip and
Okay.
they made it look like as long as he was, it's not even a concentration spell. So it was just as long as he cast it, um, then it would just last uh, for their rest. But enough perception could get through the illusion. So what we did was he made the illusion on the door to make it look like it was just the rest of the stone wall. They put a trap inside the door, and if a wandering monster passed by the doorway, they'd have to take a perception check based on their intelligence. And so, same thing. First 2 hours, nothing. Second 2 hours, nothing. Third 2 hours, nothing. Between hours 6 and 8 on the second long rest, a couple of sturges fly by. And sorry, just give me 1 sec. My wife just walked in.
In the meantime, I'll get quickly caught up on chat. How's it going, Slayer? Sorry, I haven't been paying attention to you guys. Normally, this is in other situations where I'm playing games, I'm more interacting with chat, but in this case here, where it's just the podcast, it's just me and Cubos here. Forgive me for not paying too much attention to you, but I am reading and I'm enjoying the words that are thrown through. It's a good laugh here and there. Slayer, Pengu, and if Jingle is still here, there we go. How are you guys doing?
Sorry, I'm just checking about dinner. So where was I here?
So let's fast track Wave Echo. I know that, like I said, I'm still in the process of getting there.
Yeah. So sorry. So anyway, they long rested. They finally made it. The Sturges were not smart enough to detect, so they long rested. We went through a whole bunch of the rest of the area. We came to the Bellows, room 12.
Room 12. Ooh, the smelter cabinet.
Yeah, and that has the flaming skull in there. They completely underestimated the flaming skull.
Oh yeah, it's a tiny fucker, but it's deadly.
Yeah, they were all grouped up, and a fireball hit them. And they were very lucky to have 2 characters immune to fire.
Oh, we got a subscription. I have to actually mask up for this. Damn.
Give her.
Give me 1 second. Oh, I haven't worn the mask in months. It's probably like too small for my head now. Holy shit. My hair is going to be nothing of looking worthy, and of course the stream room is also currently a bit of a state. But Slayer, you gotta... Thank you, my dude. I make exceptions for subscriptions.
Oh, hell yeah. So anyway, they did underestimate the thing. They did kill it. But that was a very defining moment for the party in underestimation. Because they thought, oh, that thing's not that big. Anyway,
Oh yeah, no, it never is that big. It's always the tiny things, like it's always the flame skulls or the jeweled ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That always end up being the worst things.
Yeah, and they they underestimated it. I think I forget the name of the character here. Momanx or Momesk or something. Mormesk the Wraith as well. When you come to him,
Mormesk the Wraith is in room 14.
Yeah, when you come to him, I had the Turtle Druid in my party is notorious for going against the grain of what the party wants, and he's also got Thunderwave. And
oh, good old Thunderwave.
Yeah, but the Wraith is immune or has resistance to basically everything the Druid has, including Thunderwave. And they were all worried that Thunderwave was going to alert the rest of the cave because it's an echo cave. So everything that they had done to date was quiet enough to not alert other large sections of the cave. He decided to go in, thunderwave the wraith, and immediately got attacked by the wraith for 23 of his 27 health. Um,
Oh
and
shit!
it has the withering touch, so his maximum hit points are now 4. Um, it went. I decided to make it go through the wall and talk to the rest of the party members and say, "Your friend is an idiot. Do you want to like make this deal instead?" And they all decided, "Nope, we don't deal with terrorists," is what one of them said. We don't negotiate with terrorists. And he immediately got hit for 23 of his 27 life points. His maximum is now 4.
Withering damage, maximum 4 now.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then a couple of the other characters have like force damage. We had the warlock with Eldritch Blast. We had one guy with a magical weapon, so they dealt with him, but they had to take a long rest from there. So they had to do the same thing. They barred the door, they put the trap, they used the illusion, managed to get through a long rest. So they've now spent over a day in this wave echo cave, but the thunder wave has alerted the rest of the area to them. So in their long rest, the roll was instead of 17 to 20 for an encounter, it was now 12 to 20. They got very lucky that nothing found them. So anyway, they finally deal with they go to Neznar, just to fast track this. They go to Neznar, the black spider.
Yep.
They knew where he was because of the spectator. I forget where the spectator is.
The spectator, I believe, was area 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, area 15.
Yeah. So they actually banished the spectator. They made it believe that its job was done.
Oh.
And yeah, they managed to persuade it, I think, that its job was finished, and they banished it. But because they could speak with it telepathically, one of the characters asked where Neznar was. So they knew that Neznar was in room 19, and they go to deal with Neznar. They didn't know about the bugbears or the spiders, though. So they all rushed into the room to deal with Neznar. The bugbears take a stance on either side of them. And on the next round, all the spiders dropped from the ceiling. And in room 18, there were 3 bugbears and a doppelganger, which the next round came into the room from the northeast passage. So they just continuously had to deal with more and more. And it was like just this battle of attrition. Like, honestly, it was hit for hit, miss for miss, hit for hit. And Neznar managed to basically barricade himself in the back northeast corner, near the pillar, and just keep throwing spells out and illusions and other things. Finally, everything but Neznar is wiped out, but he's cast darkness and invisibility. So he's in the bubble of darkness. He is invisible.
Oh yeah, dark elves get that fancy shenanigans.
Yeah, and he finally, after everything else is dead, he finally says, "Adventurers, why have you even come here?" Right? And he starts talking to them about their motivations. And a side note, most of the party had been actually drinking in real life for the last hour and a half, heavily. This is, hour 10 to 12.
Exactly, yeah.
And so anyway, a couple of the members, they're like, just kill him. And the one guy who was not inebriated said, "Look, we don't know where he is. Like, for every move we make, he's going to make a move as well. He's invisible. None of us can perceive where he is." So they negotiated. Neznar actually makes it out with his life in our version. He laid his spider staff down on the feet of our warlock and made a break for it and got away, using invisibility. And they find the third brother, in room 20.
Nundro.
Yeah. And complete the quest, essentially. But the black spider is somewhere. But I made the black spider's motivations in line with drow motivations, male drow motivations. He's trying to use Wave Echo Cave to create enough magical items to outfit an army to overthrow the matriarchy in the Underdark. So that was his motivation, and that's why he needed Wave Echo Cave. It wasn't about money or power or fame or any of these other things. He wanted to overthrow the matriarchy.
It was basically whatever the house is, the main house is in Menzo Baron's on. He wants to take over
Yeah,
that
he
spot.
wanted to overthrow it. So that actually rang like for those other party members who have read the Drizzt series, they were like, "Oh, okay, we get it, but we can't let you go." But they finally negotiated and let Nesnar go. Yeah,
Interesting. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that motivation from
yeah.
you.
It's a I.
Just so you're
It
aware.
was it just like honestly that was a one of those like on the spot motivation things. I was like, "Oh, that needs to happen."
Oh yeah, and again, it works into like it works into that little bit of it's a loose end that can tie into another campaign, a homebrew campaign of yours or another campaign.
Yeah. My plan.
Like in my case,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead, you first.
My plan with Nesnar in the future, knowing that he got away, is that he will actually seek out the party somewhere around when they hit like level 15. I'm hoping sort of after the Tyranny of Dragons campaign. If they complete that campaign with a win, then Nesnar will find them and ask for their help in taking the Underdark. And if they lose, then Nesnar will come to them as a helping hand with forces from the Underdark. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no. Like I said, this is one of those. This module is like from hearing your experience and from my own. It's an excellent tool for DMs who want to get into DMing, and also for players who don't know about or know about D&D but they haven't had a chance to play it, but they want to try out a session or two. Like this module is amazing for just that.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely, my only real complaint is like there's a lot of side stuff to do, and if you in my situation where I'm new to 5e and I'm trying to figure out like what works, what doesn't work, that sort of thing, it's like you can very quickly over level your players and you don't understand how or you don't know what you did at first and you need to fix it before it gets out of hand.
Yeah. Um,
And
I found,
it does have a oh, go ahead.
sorry, I found that what I was doing with the items each week was at the miners exchange each week the owner would bring in one magical item and one potion from the DM lists or from the Dungeon Master's handbook lists. I made sure that they weren't super powerful, just helpful. But I think that if you feel like you're, oh, sorry, the dog's here. The
Oh, it's all good.
I feel like if you get to a point where your party is overpowered, you might have to finish this starter campaign and then have them like um, board a ship for somewhere, and they end up they have a shipwreck and wash up on shore with very little of their gear. So they have to start with almost nothing. Like it's got to be something to basically de-level
Oh
where
yeah.
they're at.
Oh yeah, and like I said, I these characters are so far just for the starter set. If my players want to come back to these characters later on in a campaign that requires like a little bit of a higher level, then it's doable.
Yeah.
Um, for my next campaign, we're gonna run the Dragons of Icespire, the Dragon of Icespire
Mm-hmm.
Peak, I think it is, and because it takes place in the same area as Phandalin, because Phandalin is the central hub for it, I had the three players who were able to show up before Christmas roll out some new characters, and this is like these are going to be the characters you're going to run this next module with. And I put them in the area because they haven't left for Thunder Tree or the other place yet. But for now, at least we have them in the same area. They are working alongside, but doing something completely different.
Mm-hmm. And I think my
Um,
party is actually going to stick with their same characters. Um, I feel like they're actually all invested in their characters, and they want to see them all get to level 20 at this point. So they're gonna head from Fendalen, and they've got two choices because I've got the books now. They can either go take the Saltmarsh campaign, or they can do the Tyranny of Dragons. And the Saltmarsh campaign uses experience points, just like the starter book here. But the Tyranny of Dragons has a railroad system or a plateau system. So when you finish a certain objective, you level up. You just automatically level up. There's no experience involved. So over two books, you gain 15 levels. Um,
Oh yeah.
So if we use the first book, they won't gain a level until we surpass the level that they're at. They'll probably play through about half the book, and then they'll finally start to level again. So it's cool that they're invested in their characters, but it makes it hard to go back to other campaigns where they're not going to get levels out of it.
Interesting. I'll take note of that because I'm guessing Tyranny of Dragons also runs into the same area as well. And here's why I believe that, because the Tyranny of Dragons miniature blind box
Mm-hmm.
sets, all of the miniatures that you pull from there also pull for the starter set as well.
Oh, okay.
Example, the Red Wizard or Hammond Cost, you can pull a Red Wizard miniature from the Tyranny of Dragons
Yeah.
set. I pulled a Green Dragon even, and it's like, what the fuck? There's Venom Fang if I
Yeah.
need it. And there's a few other things that I pulled as well that work really well. Like there's Orcs, of course. So like all of the miniatures that I've pulled so far from the Tyranny of Dragons blind box miniature sets work very well for the starter
Yeah.
set, and that's why I think it ties in really well.
Yeah, and the just in looking at the Tyranny of Dragons books, a lot of the same things that happen in the Lost Mine of Phandelver, like with certain interaction or certain encounters, is very much the same as the first book of Tyranny of Dragons. But the difference is that the Mines of Phandelver or Phandelver is um, very friendly to a starting party, and has very little negative consequence for your party if something goes wrong. Uh, the
Whereas Tyranny of Dragons might have a lot more consequence for certain
Yeah,
actions.
I don't know if you've read the actual conclusion to winning or losing that campaign, but it has
Starter set or Tyranny of
the
Dragons?
tyranny set.
I have not read anything about it yet.
Okay, so the gist of it without any spoilers is that if you lose the campaign, it has some very 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 serious consequences for the characters, and the world
Oh
around
yeah.
them. And if you win the campaign, there are still some negative consequences out of that because there are lasting impressions and certain people that are never dealt with, so they're still out in the open. So it's very much a consequence driven storyline, whereas Phandelver is very much more friendly to a starting party.
Mm-hmm.
But they do encounter
On
a lot of the same things, like red wizards and obviously dragons and dragon cultists, and it's
of
yeah, the
course.
starting campaign touches on a lot of the things I think that you will find in other campaigns, which is really cool.
Interesting. On that note, how would you rate the Lost Mines of Phandelver on a scale of 1 to 10?
Um, I would give it like a probably an 8, a solid 8. I feel like it has um, the perfect amount of information for a starting DM. It has the perfect amount of adventuring for starting adventurers. It's got the right amount of like randomly keyed adventures if you choose to take them. We didn't do a lot of wandering monsters or anything. It was just travel to and from. Um,
Oh yeah.
it's got just about the right amount of like bosses and big things to fight. Where I think it lacks is in consequence for the characters, other than death. They don't really touch on like um, very much politics or religion or characters having consequences for their actions in town or anything. That's up to the DM, which I think is good. But it would have been nice to know that those consequences can happen as a starting DM,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not very defined in the book for a new DM. Um, but I do like that there's things like it says like role playing Nesnar. Even though he intends to kill the characters, Nesnar is curious about them. So it gives you these tips and hints and things that you might want to do as a DM.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an 8 out of 10 for me. because it's the
8 out of
perfect way
10.
to start into D&D, but it's even better if you have an experienced DM.
Yeah, so far from what I've played of it, like I won't know until I finish it with my group, but I definitely say so far from what I've read of it and what I've looked into, I'd probably sit with you there as well. 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's
And
anything that they
then
could have done better in a book this size, except for, like I say, maybe a little more consequence for the characters. They might have to think more about what their actions actually entail.
yeah, yeah, that's all there is to it really. Like it's got it doesn't go too much into consequence. In fact, you mentioned before in a previous conversation we had, not on the podcast, that you had, or even you did mention it actually, but you had them go deal with one of the side quests from part 3 and then come back, and then all of a sudden Theldendrar is gone, and you find out later on he's dead, and it's like, oh, clearly these guys are the guys who are killing these
Mm-hmm.
fuckers. Like we're gone. They feel like they've got no one to protect them, so the red brands kill people. Like this is like that was something that I like, that had I known that was an option, I might have gone with that aspect of it instead of just killing him off.
Yeah, that's fair. And I ended up actually accidentally skipping the death of Dendrar, and then later on having to explain why he was in the canyon where the Nothic was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a big deal or anything, but it was just like, I think the players in my party felt like it was a consequence of not dealing with the red brands right away, which is what I wanted them to feel. So.
And I must say that was really well done. Like hands down really well done.
I think like that's why I say I think I'll be a DM forever. Always a DM and never a player. It's just because like it's too much fun being the driving force behind people's imagination.
Oh yeah. On that note, uh thanks for coming on. This has been a blast and a half.
Hey, no worries, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, anytime. Like what are you running next? Ghost of Saltmarsh, right? Or are you gonna switch that up for Tyranny of Dragons?
I've left the choice up to the regular party, and they haven't come back to me yet. But I'm hoping that they pick the Ghosts of Saltmarsh first, and really get a sense for the Sword Coast and the marshes and more area, and get more and more invested in the world, and then we'll go and play the Tyranny of Dragons afterwards, and I can scale the low end stuff back to their characters, because I want them to play for like another 2 months, get more invested, and then we play a really um, consequence based campaign where their choices are going to shape the world around them.
When you get around to running the Tales from the Yawning Portal,
Oh,
when you
cut
get
out.
around to doing that again, or when you do get around to running Tales of the Yawning Portal, I would love to have you back on to talk about
Mm-hmm.
that. And anytime I'm hoping to keep this up as like a December thing for D and December. Again, thank you for coming on. If you wanted to tell the viewers we have, if you could, like where to find you, like promo yourself.
Yeah, so it's just twitch.tv/Cubos, Cubos, and Cubos Games on Twitter. That's pretty much the two platforms I use. I have a Discord as well. It can be found on my Twitch page. There is a 24-hour a day link there. I do stream as a variety streamer, a whole variety of games, although I've taken more and more to story-based games lately, because it's really nice to be able to just play a storyline and talk to people at the same time. We put an art print on the wall behind myself for every game that we complete. Currently, there are two, with a third one on the way already. Um, yeah, that's pretty much what I do. And then I DM in my spare time. Um, I work as a road construction foreman in northern Canada. So for 6 months a year, I work 80-hour weeks. And for the other half of the year, I'm either laid off or I go down to 30-hour weeks working in an office, which gives me all the time in the world to do stuff like this.
Awesome. And then, yeah, so again, thank you for coming on, and I'll just throw some announcement things that I'm going to remove in post. But again, thank you for coming on. It's been a blast. And for sure, we'll see you next time, and we'll definitely see you around.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
Expect some raids when I go live again.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for having me. I have to jump out of the chat so I can go for dinner, but I'm going to let you close.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. And again, thank you very much.
No worries at all.
Cubos, everybody.
Later.
'Cause you're not lonely for the run now, for the run now. So